In this video, we're going to create a chart protocol that's related to CMS138, which is Preventative Care and Screening, Tobacco Use, Screening and Cessation Intervention. Now, I'm going to go ahead and use this video to go a little deeper than we've gone in the past, kind of go a few extra steps to show that those options are available and get more specific than we have in the past. This is, of course, related to meaningful use, core objective 6 for stage 2. That's clinical decision support rule. If you have not yet watched our overview video for core objective 6, I would certainly advise you to go ahead and stop here. Go and watch that overview video. It explains the detail behind it and why we're doing this through our chart protocols, health protocols, etc. This will make a lot more sense to you once you've seen that video first. So to begin with, we're going to come back to our CMS 138. Let's go ahead and click on More Info and see what it's asking us to pursue. So you can see the basic description. Percentage of patients age 18 years or older who were screened for tobacco use and who received cessation counseling if they were identified as a tobacco user. Okay, so let's go ahead and start building our chart protocol. We're going to come back and look at this here in a second, but we want to get started first. So we're going to go to Application button, Setup, Chart Setup, Chart Protocols. Okay, I'm going to add a new protocol. It's going to be CMS 136, description, tobacco cessation device. Okay, again, code and description are going to be your internal use codes just to find this protocol again if you need to. Notification is going to be the summary. And the details is once you click details, when it's a hit, it's the instructions to give yourself at that later time. Okay. We're also going to set the execution type to automatic, and that's up here at the main pieces that we're going to apply. Under criteria, we're going to add what are called Snomed Codes. Now, Snomed Codes are something that you may have heard of through the conversations in meaningful use, but most people aren't very familiar with them yet. Let's come back to our CMS guide on this particular measure, and we'll see what we're talking about there. So we've been looking at the description a fair amount on many of these measures. If you scroll down, there's a lot more detail here, including a big and/or kind of logical flow list. Now, the description up top gives you a basic idea of what they're looking for, but on each of these CMS measures, they've gone and been very, very specific on exactly what they mean by this description. So in this case, you can see they want people who have a birth date greater than or equal to 18 years, and they have at least 2 encounters, and they have very specific types of encounters, or 1 encounter of this type. Okay, and for them to be in the numerator, they have to be a tobacco user, and they have to be given cessation counseling or pharmacotherapy, etc. Okay, so there's all kinds of combinations there. For our protocol, we're going to not quite go to that level of depth, but we are going to go to more depth than we have in the past. What we're going to do is for each of these phrases that you see here, so encounter performed, annual visit, or patient characteristic tobacco user, they've actually, again, gone to a lot of detail. They, being CMS, have specifically given you a list of, in this case, Snomed Codes. So they say this is what we consider to be a tobacco user. You have to have one of these Snomed Codes associated with the patient encounter. Okay, if you come down here and look at this big bulleted list, one of these items is going to be patient characteristic tobacco user. And the last thing is this big long number, so 2.16. etc. That's called an OID. I used that OID to go and retrieve the value set that they're talking about. And once I did that, this is the list it gave me. Okay, so this is a list of Snomed codes. Again, most people aren't terribly familiar with these. They're just numeric codes. Snomed is just a code system like diagnosis, like CPT codes, like HCPCS or LOINC if you're familiar with LOINC codes. Just a different code set of codes. You've been entering them as you go through your daily notes in Practice Studio if you're on our latest data sets. We just do it for you on the back end. That's why you're not familiar with the specific codes themselves. These particular codes, obviously we don't use every one of these, there's quite a few here, but the ones that are pertinent we have on the tobacco screen that you're used to using in charts for meaningful use. So we're going to go ahead and get all of these. I'm going to copy all of these, come over to Practice Studio, and we're going to add these. So we're going to add a criteria item. The type is going to be a Snomed code. Operand is going to be in, and we're going to add multiple. So I'm just going to paste that comma separated list, say OK, and now you can see that translated to all of these individual Snomed codes, and you can see how they're related to tobacco use. The different Snomed codes are for different types of tobacco use. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and limit it to the last year. Save. Okay, now we're going to go a step further beyond that. We're also going to say that, great, now we know everyone who is a tobacco user. I only want the protocol to display, however, and bug me about it if I have not given him cessation advice, because that's the whole point. I'm trying to stop myself in the middle of the patient flow to remind myself, oops, I need to give this guy some cessation advice or education per the CMS guideline. So we're going to add a second criteria. Again, it's going to be a Snomed code. And that particular Snomed code I went and looked up, and it's this code right here. Okay, this time the operand is going to be not equal to, and we're going to add that Snomed code. So there we go, smoking cessation assistance. Again, if you don't have a resource to go pull these, you can always browse for it. So I could browse for smoking cessation, and here's that code that I found there. Same code. Okay, I'm going to limit it to 1 year again and save that. So now we've gotten a little bit more complex just to show what's available. They are a tobacco user. We have not given them cessation. The last thing we're going to do is give them a screening age. Okay, so we only care about people who are 18 years or older. You can see as we go here, so I left that at the default greater than or equal to 18 years. I'm going to click Save. But you can make this as sophisticated as you care to make it. So it can be very, very specific. Chart Protocols is a very powerful tool in Practice Studio to get to very specific segments of your patient population and then give you notices, and you can generate lists off that or generate letters, different things like that. We're going to go ahead and click Save. Okay, now before I leave here, since this one we're kind of using as a vehicle to show some of the more advanced features of Chart Protocols, let me talk about a couple additional options here, just so you're aware that they exist. Patient inclusion, we've always left this as the default of all patients. If you wanted to exclude patients for any reason or include specific patients, so basically limit it to a subset of patients, you can choose that. So I can exclude specific patients, and I can add those patients to the list. I can include, which means I'm only going to run this protocol against certain patients and add them to the list individually. Okay, there are edge cases where that's helpful. Most of the times you're going to be running this against all patients. The second tab here is going to be the user-specific roles that are allowed to run this chart protocol. And it's just a security measure. You can either have all, which is the default, or limit it to specific roles. And the last is references. So when you pull up the protocol and it gives you details and instructions, you can then go an extra level and say this was per CMS138 guidelines. Okay, just to give yourself a clue of where that rule came from, where you came up with that rule set. Okay, so we're going to save that. Now let's go actually make this happen on a patient and see what results. We're going to go to medical records. We have Mr. Young Male here, and he's within the age range, so we're going to go ahead and start posting. Okay, he already has one health protocol that's a hit, you can notice here. Let's go ahead and click on that and see what it is. Okay, now that's going to be for our low back pain, one we've done earlier. Okay, if we wanted to, we could take this, look at our details, take action on it if we cared to. Another thing, since we're using this as a vehicle for detail, down here at the bottom, and you've seen this screen several times, it actually always shows you specifically how this patient came to meet the protocol. So one of the criteria for the protocol was that one of these diagnosis codes has been set. This patient had that diagnosis code, this one specifically, on this date. So you always know for individual patients why they've been included in this protocol. Okay, Since that's not related to our tobacco use, we'll go ahead and click Save here to accept that. And we're going to go to Body Systems and the Constitutional Exam. Okay, and we're going to come over to the additional tests and tobacco usage. Now, if you've been pursuing meaningful use, you're very likely familiar with this area. You may also have been getting to it from the PFSH page, the Past Family Social History page. Same thing. This area at the top, high-tech meaningful use codes, this is where you're identifying that the patient is a tobacco user. And it has been a requirement of meaningful use since stage 1, so you've likely been doing this on your existing patients. I'm going to go ahead and say this patient is a current someday smoker. Okay, and we'll say he smoked for 12 years. Okay, when I do that, Practice Studio has automatically attached the appropriate Snomed code that's related to current someday smoker. We'll see that here in a second. Okay, I am not, however, going to then go and give him cessation assistance, because remember, we're specifically looking for the absence of that item. We only want to warn us about it if we fail to do that. So we're going to hit Home and we're going to hit Quit. And now, since it changed within the encounter, as I exit out, it throws this chart protocol window to say, hey, we changed data within the encounter, and now he is a hit for this protocol, provide tobacco cessation education. We have 2 here. We know that we're talking about the tobacco one because it has this little new spot, the little indicator saying it's a new protocol. So I can hit Details. There's my instructions. We can see both of those criteria. So there's that big long list. That 428 is the specific Snomed code related to everyday smoker. Okay, and you'll notice that we did not want cessation advice, and there was no cessation advice given. So there's our instructions. If we want to look at our reference information, we can click our link here. There's that bibliographic citation we entered. And that's that. So that gives us the cue that we need to give this person cessation education as appropriate. Let's say that we want to do this, and it gave us the cue as it was designed to. Let's not take action on it. We're not going to resolve or dismiss it. We're going to click Save. Okay, and we're going to come straight back in and say, I forgot to do that. And we're going to come into Body Systems. We're going to come back to Constitutional, Additional Tests, Tobacco Usage, and we are going to give him cessation assistance. Okay. Now, when I quit out and save that, notice we changed. It threw it up again because our chart protocol situation changed based on information in this encounter. In this case, that tobacco item was removed because now he does have cessation assistance, which is part of the criteria, so it's no longer a hit. We've met everything we need to. We don't need to be reminded about it. Didn't even have to resolve or dismiss it in that case. It took care of it for us because we took those extra steps when we defined the protocol. And that's all we're going to do for this one. Again, that's an example of a more complex protocol you can create to meet this requirement. How complex and how simple you make it is up to you. It just needs to be related to those CMS measures, but we want to go ahead and show you all the capabilities so that you know how to best utilize them.